This is a picture we took of a yellow sponge and also a giant barrel sponge. This is an azure vase sponge, very common on the sites we were at. That's Sharon behind some yellow tube sponges and a bicolor damselfish. Here we have some red sponge. Here we have pillar coral and some yellow sponge. This is a typical picture of a giant barrel sponge. We didn't take this picture, however. This picture we did take, and it was just amazing. The barrel sponge had the coral growing right through the sections of it. This shot is of the sea plumes that were fairly common again on the shallower dive sites, and the next slide will actually be a video.
Hey, here we are. It's a bit rocking and rolling, but we can see the rainbow, and the waves here aren't too bad. A little bit of a white cap action, and we're going to go dive, and there. Oh man, this is where we're going to stop. Yeah, a little bit of rock. There's Joel. Very happy to be diving. And the rest of the boat.
Here we are at the end of the day, celebrating with a rum punch and writing up our dive logs, getting ready for diving the next day. Here we have the barracuda. This is a black bar soldier fish, but the most interesting thing is actually the two little bumps on its forehead. Those are isopods. And in the dive sites in Bequia, we saw more fish with isopods than we've seen in any other dive location we've gone to. We thought at first they were a parasite, but in fact they're actually just there getting the leftovers of the food from the fish that they're hosting on. This was a very common fish we saw, the rock beauty. You find these fish on the flat sandy bottoms, and they're very interesting to see. They're flounder. This is a peacock flounder. We saw several different types, and their two eyeballs are independent and can rotate around as you swim around them, and then their mouth is flat, you can see on the front there. This is one of Sharon's favorite fish, which is the queen angel fish, and we saw several on the dives. We also saw several very large green morays, and one of them was in a cave area, and I swam closer, and he bolted out after me to tell me to get out of there. And later the dive master indicated that it might have been a female that had a baby in the cave as well. Almost every single dive we saw spotted morays like this. We also saw a sharp-tail eel like this swimming out in the open. A fairly unique find was a chain moray that we saw on one of the wreck dives that we did. This is called a 3-row sea cucumber, and we saw sea cucumbers on some of the more shallow dives in the sandy areas. An incredibly common fish we saw on the Bequia sites was the scorpion fish, and this is actually poisonous, although they usually are just very docile sitting on the bottom, but their fins are poisonous. This is a hawksbill turtle, and we saw them on a couple of the dives, and later on you'll see some video from the turtle sanctuary. On the boat trip we had some pretty rough days, including this one where we were actually wearing our masks because we were getting splashed so much. Here's Sharon and I on the same rough day, and a shot of how rough the water was. This next section is all of the small creatures that we saw. This particular one is a slender filefish. a long snout butterfly fish, a juvenile yellowtail damselfish. This picture we took with our camera, and it's a smooth trunk fish, and we saw these on every single dive. Something we haven't seen in a lot of the other dive locations has been seahorses. And in Bequia we had several dives where we saw them. This is a common seahorse. And this is a long snout seahorse. We saw two yellow ones similar to this that were actually mating. A very cool find was a leopard flatworm, and we actually took this picture with our camera on the shallow dive we did. And this is a close-up of the leopard flatworm. Here's a lettuce nudibranch. They're very small. Here's a red-lipped blenny, and on one dive I actually saw about 50 of them on one large piece of brain coral. This is a sharp-nosed puffer. A secretary blenny, which is about the size of a Q-tip. A French angelfish juvenile. A flamingo tongue. This picture we took of the Christmas tree worms, and following this picture will be an underwater movie that we took with our camera. The next several shots show flowers from around the island when we were out hiking, and this one you can see they're even growing in the abandoned vehicles on the side of the road. Here we have the island's form of lawnmowers. Here is the view from the captain's house living room. Naturally, we had to buy a 2-for of the local beer called Hyroon. Here we have the Saturday morning karate class on Lower Bay Beach. A view of beautiful Admiralty Bay. This next section are all the reef creatures that we saw. This is called a Peterson cleaning shrimp. A picture we took of some coral-banded shrimp. A close-up downloaded picture of the same coral-banded shrimp. On one of the wall dives, I saw a mantis shrimp in a crevice on the wall just like this. Here's a shot of a spiny lobster. We took this picture with our camera, and we saw a lot of lobsters on all the dives. I even saw a spiny lobster with the eggs attached on the back like this. We also saw a crevice with 11 spiny lobsters in one place, similar to this. Something we haven't seen in very many other locations are Spanish lobsters, and we saw those in Bequia. This is a large channel clinging crab. We saw them eating. Very common in Bequia were the red reef hermit crabs. This is a rough file clam, a West Indian sea egg, a pencil urchin, and spaghetti worms.